Companies are planning to have employees back in the office after Labor Day. This is the Focus Group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend Tim Bennett. Find us here on Wednesdays from 1 to 2 p.m. East on YouTube or Facebook Live. And of course, everything's available at focusgroupradio.com. Information about us, our partners, and of course, all our media is housed there. As we kick off this week, it's time to wish Mr. Tim Bennett a very happy birthday. This is a birthday week. This is an Aries week, right? Because you're Aries.
In Aries week, yeah. My birthday is later in the week, which I kind of forgot about until, I got home for Easter and my mom had got my niece actually picked up this cannoli cake, which I've never had, at a Sun Bakery in Waterbury, which I'm sure your family knows exists. I guess it's an Italian bakery in Waterbury. I've never had a cannoli cake before, but it was quite good. So I had a little birthday celebration there for Easter. We all had our shots, so I felt comfortable not having seen anybody in quite some time. But it was funny because when it came time to blow out the candles, my mom had this cardboard fan thing, and because it was my niece's boyfriend's birthday too, so we had double candles on the cake. So Cortland and I just waved this cardboard fan to blow the candles out.
What was there, 100 candles? How many candles were on the cake? 100 candles?
100 candles. After we made our wish and me winning the lottery, of course, you and I are still here, so no lottery ticket had come through. So much for birthday wishes.
Are they supposed to happen on the same day you make the wish? I never know about that.
Well, that's a good point. I don't know, when's the wish supposed to come true? When you make a birthday wish before you blow out the candles, when's the wish? What's the sell by date on the birthday wish?
I don't know. I wonder if you have a whole year to collect on that wish, and so we should be paying attention to scratch off, Powerball, the whole Megillah, right? You need to keep your head in there. So when we used to be back in the studio, as we would fondly remember that birthdays or holidays, the last half of the show was usually taken up by Prosecco and cake. And you're a big lemon fan. So I would always get chocolate. You would get something that was lemony, and we would go from there. So I was up in Connecticut as well, visiting the family. My niece was visiting from Texas, my oldest niece, and it was wonderful to see her and to hang out with her and to see what a beautiful young woman she's, become. All my nieces are. I'm so proud of all of them, and it's just really wonderful to be able to hang out with them as adults, right? I mean, we remember them as kids, but having these really great conversations as adults is a lot of fun. So,
well, I think about them at the age that they are now, which is in their mid-20s, I suppose, and how we were in our mid-20s and what we were doing. And gosh, boy, time, it's always such a cliche, but boy, time does go fast.
Yes, extremely fast. Yeah, and one of my favorite things when I talk to my nieces is they have very fond memories of seeing me and Bob up at the country house, or games we would play, or they have very fond memories of us being in their lives from an early age onward, and I think that's an important thing too.
Right. Well, that's good. So I'm glad you were able to visit, and we were both able to visit. It feels weird having not really seen family or not really been out and about. So did you have both your shots yet, or just the one shot so far?
Bob is fully done. I'm halfway done. My niece was fully done. My mom and her husband are fully done. So I was the only iffy person. Yeah. But we had not been circulating a lot. We felt comfortable getting together.
Did you have any reaction?
From the first one, no. The first, I was getting the Pfizer version, and a little fatigued the second day, but not even a sore arm or anything. We'll see how it goes on the on the second one. Some people have something, some people have nothing. Did you have any reaction to the second?
The only reaction I've had overall is I've had ringing in my ear.
Yeah, our friend Pat does. Yeah,
it's more whistling, and it is driving me crazy. It woke me up last night. Usually when it's very quiet, it shows up, and so I try to keep things on or whatever. But I hope it goes away.
It's not subsided at all?
I thought over the weekend it had, because when I was up in Connecticut, I hadn't really been bothered by it. But then when I got back to Pennsylvania, and as I was trying to fall asleep last night, it showed up again. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, hey, I guess that's it's better to have a little ringing than to have the have a respirator attached to me.
Yeah, but I think that when you're laying in bed at night, the ringing really is irritating. Tinnitus is it can drive people crazy. It can, it literally has. So just keep an eye on it. Hopefully, it is a side effect that it goes away as the days go by.
Well, I heard Joe Scarborough say he had the same thing, which was odd. You know, he and I are born on the same day, same age.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, maybe it's something with April 9. I don't know.
We got to get on that morning, Joe, I tell you. All right, with that, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So this story that you had seen this story as well, and I wondered whether after you had said you had seen the story, I pulled this from the BBC, but it had been published in a few places, and I wondered whether it was there was something going on, whether it was National Adoption Week or there was something that kind of triggered the story. But it's a very heartwarming story, a very feel-good story, and I enjoyed reading it, so I wanted to share with everybody. The headline is, "We found a baby on the subway, and now he's our son." So this was back in 2000. There were two guys. They were dating for about 3 years. Danny and Peter were dating. And Danny was on his way on the subway in New York to meet Pete for dinner. And when he got off the subway, he saw what he thought was a doll lying on the platform, the subway platform. And just kind of walked by and wondered why there would be a doll there wrapped up. And then turned around and then looked again and saw the feet move, saw the little feet wiggle. So he walked over and realized that, in fact, it was a newborn that actually still had the part of the umbilical cord attached. And he obviously was shocked, as any of us would be. So he didn't know what to do. He tried to ask for help in the subway and was somewhat ignored. And so he ran up. This was, again, before cell phones were pretty prevalent. So he ran up to the street level and called the police, called 911, and said, "I found this baby." Obviously not a big rush with New York police, and the line of what's going on.
Yeah.
So then he called Pete, the guy who was going to meet his future husband, and says, "Hey, I don't think the police are going to come very quick. You call and say you found a baby too." And eventually the police come. They take the child. They take him to the children's hospital to check the baby out. But Danny then has to go to Manhattan Family Court and go through this whole discussion about getting the baby placed in foster care and how the baby was found, and the whole process that goes through with foster care and adoption. And the judge, in listening to the story, sensed that Danny may have had a connection with this baby, and she just very intuitively said, "Would you be interested in adopting this child?" And he blurted out yes. And the interesting thing is, I think many couples go through this, is he didn't really talk to Pete about it.
I mean, he was in court when he said, "Yeah, I think I want to adopt." So
right. So he calls and says, "Hey, the judge asked me about adopting this baby, and I think I'm going to." And it was actually pretty lots of tension between their relationship for a while. And Pete did not want to have children, or really just essentially said to him, "Good luck being a single parent in Manhattan, because I'm not interested in this." And Danny said, "Well, I'm going to do it regardless of whether we do it together or I do it alone. I'm going to adopt this child." So lo and behold, they eventually adopt the child, and it ends up being a great experience for them both. And the child's, they named the child Kevin, and he's now grown up to be a very astute and smart. And there's pictures along throughout the article of a young man who's in college studying computer science and math. And they said they never ever would have thought about having a child, and it's really enriched their lives, and they're so happy that this happened. And the one part of the story that I thought was really interesting was, aside from the fact of the dynamic of the couple, was the fact that I thought this judge, that she was very smart and intuitive to think that this child that he had found would have a good home with these two men. And she really was supportive of it and pushed it and said, "I can make it happen, and I can make it happen quick." And I thought kudos for the judge, because she sees this all day long in family court, and she sensed that this would be a good home for this child. And it just ended up being a great story. They ended up writing a book about finding him, and there's a book available about finding the baby on the subway, and now he's got this very fulfilled life. So I just thought it was a very, very heartwarming story.
It's a fantastic story, and we had 2 pictures up while Tim was talking. I'll go back to the first one. This is the couple with young Kevin. Notice how youthful they are, and obviously he's a little baby boy. And then when you go forward into the future, literally, I think this past year or so, they're in the same grouping, but here's this beautiful, handsome 20-year-old son of theirs who's, I think, over 6 feet tall. They adore him. He's been raised beautifully. One of their big passions is going to national parks, and I just loved if you have a chance and you find the article on BBC, it's a good read because, as Tim said, there are pictures throughout, but I loved it. The pictures were like a time machine, right? Like every time you saw them, he was a little bigger, or he had like one of those those school pictures where the kids are wearing a shirt that's a little too big and the collar doesn't fit the neck, and and he's always smiling and he always seemed happy. And you're right about the judge, Tim. The interesting part of that article was that she instinctively reacted to the connection she thought they had because he found him. They found Kevin on the subway platform.
Right.
So it was a really great story, and I'm glad you profiled it for Caught Our Eye because it's one of those. I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is such great news. I like reading this. There's nothing bad about it.
Yeah, no, it was just a very, very heartwarming story. And, it goes to show who knows what could have happened, had Danny not found him. I mean, talk about things that happen in your life and whether it's luck or whether it's serendipity or whatever happens, that this seems to have worked out well for all of them. So,
quite well.
Great story.
Yeah. Oh no, you great caught your eye, by the way. I just think that this kind of stuff needs to be paid attention to more, actually, right? Mine is nowhere near as highbrow as Mr. Birthday Boy. And we're going to remind people that it's the birthday week for Tim. This is, in fact, this was selected for you. We can't really tell you why this is going to make you laugh. But it's so. My story comes to us from Disney World or Disneyland, and it's about a couple. And basically what the husband did was he walked around Disney World, or I think it's Disneyland, and repeatedly would get on his knee and propose to his wife because she hates public attention. Now, you probably know where I'm going with a trip we took to P-Town once and how I drove Bob crazy by drawing attention to us every time we walked down Commercial Street until you told Bob the secret of how to avoid these problems was to just ignore John. Just ignore him. It's going to stop. But they would go, like in front of Cinderella's castle during the light show, he would kneel down and people would clap and, and she would get all embarrassed. They went to a restaurant, and in a restaurant, in one of the Disneyland restaurants, or it's Disney World, I'm sorry, it's definitely Disney World. He would take his fork and like, ding, 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 ding. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to announce that I'm marrying the love of my life. And she would like turn all red. And finally someone's like, do you have any social anxieties, or is this embarrassing? She goes, you don't get it. Like, we've been engaged for a while and he's just driving me crazy by doing this.
So was she in on it, or was like you and Bob, where Bob's just like going to crack you in the head if you keep it up?
Well, the picture I'm showing is a TikTok video that someone grabbed, and she's like, he's down on his knees and he's looking at it, and she just has this like, leave me alone look on her face, which I think would be hilarious to see if you're watching this, right, at Disney World. You're like, what's going on? Is she not happy that he's proposing? So he knows that she hated that kind of attention, and so he thought this is the best thing. I think he did it 5 to 7 times throughout the park. I would have liked to have seen it at the restaurant with the ding, 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 and I would have liked to have seen it in front of Cinderella's castle.
Well, this could be your long-lost brother, or brother from a different mother or something, because this is right up your alley. What you do with Bob, poor Bob. With the Price Chopper, I've seen you do it. I've seen you do it in a number of places.
Oh, yeah.
Bob, try to embarrass him, and at one time he just yelled at you and cracks you, and I laugh. And then people do look. Yes. I mean, people are wondering what's going on, because sometimes you were probably not.
I'll give a banal example of this. We were in this store once with Tim. We were up in Provincetown. We were at I forget what the main grocery store is now. It was A&P back then. And we're in front of the ice cream aisle, and I start saying really loudly, I want ice cream now. Like, and Bob's like, shh, stop it. And Tim just starts doing what he's doing right now. He just starts laughing. And I said, Bob, don't worry about it. No one's going to pay any attention. But of course, people would pay attention, right? They thought, what's going on here? And I would do it on the street. And finally, I think we were sitting at Bubala's or something on Commercial Street. And Tim goes, Bob, you can diffuse the whole thing by not reacting. The reason he keeps doing this is you're reacting to it.
Well, because Bob would be, stop doing it now. And then he'd try to swing, like smack your hand or whatever. And then people be, oh, is he hitting that poor kid, that poor gentleman.
What's their relationship? How dare you?
Just crank you up even more.
How dare you strike him? What's wrong with you? So we go from the highbrow of the found baby on the subway platform who's given a wonderful life with two cool dads to John's lowbrow of a guy who pranks his wife through Disney World by proposing multiple times to embarrass her, which we laugh at, you and me, because we do that to Bob. We don't do the proposal thing, but we've done that to Bob.
I was at a restaurant one time and a couple broke out into a very loud verbal fight. And we had thought, I was with my friend Kate, and I believe I was with Clarissa, but there was a couple of us there. And they thought right away that the couple had done this as a
stunt,
kind of almost like foreplay. Like they would do this and this would turn them on and then they'd go home and have make-up sex sort of thing. But they would get in these, they had this knockdown, drag-out fight, loud, verbal, in this very nice restaurant. But were purposely loud so everybody could hear it. And, of course, everybody just turned around and looked, and the fight was over, and they stormed out.
I wonder about that. As I think arriving at the conclusion that it's some kind of prelim, or preliminary before, like, some encounter, like, we're going to get each other mad, or we're going to do this. Yeah.
Role play. Yeah.
It's always good. Okay. As many of you know, Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and we want you to visit their site by going to ours, and that would be going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo, which is a shark. Arr, Shucky the shark. You're going to find great deals there. Sales are always happening. Academy Award season is approaching, and so they do have a great sale on Academy Award winners of the past, and we are always allowed to kind of free range and check things out. So, Mr. Bennett, I have a preview of what you picked, and I just really had to laugh because I thought this is so Tim. So what did you get on Deep Discount this week?
Well, I had to check to make sure it was under the sale category, which it was. And so the headline is, or the title is Iconic Films of the 80s and 90s. And then it says 20 movie collection. So I looked at it and I thought, you got to be kidding me. So it comes out from Paramount Studios. It's 20 movies, iconic movies that we know from the 80s and 90s. And you can't afford not to buy it. I mean, it's $32.44 on DVD. It came out last September, but just so you have an idea, I'll read quickly what the movies are. But to have these all in one place, to me, I just thought was a very smart thing. Airplane, 48 Hours, An Officer and a Gentleman, Flashdance, Footloose, Beverly Hills Cop, Better Off Dead, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Untouchables, Fatal Attraction, The Naked Gun, Major League, Ghost, Juice, Wayne's World, Indecent Proposal, Tommy Boy, Clueless, Election, and Payback. How could you afford not to buy this?
As you were reading this list, and I'm looking at it here on screen, I'm like, wow, this and it's $32.44 on DVD, right?
Right, and ironically, so then when I did check to make sure that this wasn't a mistake, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is really cool. There's also one for the 50s, which lists 5 iconic movies from the 50s, obviously black and white, and that one was only, I think, $13 or $14. So, yeah, and during the award-winning sale that's going on right now, check out the collections that are there, and check out the other movies, of course, that are there. But I thought it was a pretty darn good deal, so that's what I picked this week.
All right, the release this week is also my pick, and I've been banging the drum on this for a while. It is one of my all-time favorite movies, and it's the Criterion release of Defending Your Life. I'm going to hold up my copy and show you that I've already got it. In February, I went to the Criterion site. I often do just to see what's going on, if there's some new titles, and I noticed that Defending Your Life was on the schedule to come out at the end of March, and so this is the beginning of February or like end of January. It totally made the day for me. You're in the dregs of winter. It's dark out. It's cold. We're in the middle of the event. And I thought, Defending Your Life's going to get the Criterion treatment. It's Albert Brooks, written and directed by, and he stars in it along with Meryl Streep. Rip Torn has a great part as Mr. Diamond. Lee Grant as a prosecutor. Buck Henry shows up. Shirley MacLaine. It's a wonderful cast. It's well done. And the Criterion treatment, the film sparkles. It's like you're in the movie theater again. It just looks beautiful. It's been cleaned up. And true to Criterion, a lot of the things they've added, some behind-the-scenes interviews, some director commentary, all relevant, all cool, and it really adds to my pleasure of this movie. But just seeing it again as if it were in a movie theater, it just sparkled. And Bob smiled. Bob loves it too. I introduced him to this film. Actually, we saw it at a movie theater on 23rd Street when it came out, if you can believe it, in 91.
1991.
And Bob always laughs because he goes, what were we wearing? I said, don't even go there, but I can tell you where we sat, what time the movie was, and what we had before dinner. And I remember walking out of Defending Your Life just thinking, wow, this is, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. This is not science fiction, but it's just a really well done story about the afterlife, which happens to be a office park that looks like Los Angeles, and everybody's on trial for what they did on Earth.
So what do you think, because you've mentioned this movie quite a bit, it's had a big impact on you. What do you think it is about the film? If you were to sum it up in one line about this movie, why you would recommend somebody watch it?
I think that Albert Brooks took some philosophy about thoughts about life in general, and he translates it to this idea of what happens in the afterlife. And in fact, when you're on trial for how well we managed fear in our lives. Were we good to ourselves? Did we take risks? Did we do things that were special? Did we take care of other people? I mean, so he managed to ball up a lot of philosophical and religious thinking into a rom-com, a romantic comedy that takes place in the afterlife. And the results were, I thought, really fun. And of course, the casting made such a huge difference. Rip Torn as his defender, Mr. Diamond, was spot on. I mean, it's just, again, Defending Your Life is my pick, and it's the release of the week.
Does it hold up in today's age?
I think it does. Yeah.
I started watching it, and then for whatever reason I got interrupted. I know it's had a huge impact on you, and I need to spend time and I need to watch it.
You need to stay awake too.
Stay awake. So head over to focusgroupradio.com and click on the deep discount logo. They've been unsinkable since 2001, right, John? With Sharky the Shark. I had picked a group of a 20 movie collection of iconic films of the 80s and 90s, and that's available for $32.44 at deep discount. And John also picked the new release of the week, which is Defending Your Life. And it gets the Criterion treatment as well, which we always love to give that as our gold standard of approval. So head over again to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo, start shopping away. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got business, birthday, and shop talk. So stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hey, welcome back to The Focus Group. John Nash with birthday boy Tim Bennett. This is a birthday week. It's an Aries birthday. Aries and Libra get along actually very well. Focusgroupradio.com is the URL of our website. You'll find all about us, our partners, and of course, all our media is there. And you'll learn about TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday 20-minute podcast that drops on Tuesdays, which is why I said that. So here we are at the second half of our show. We're going to be doing a business birthday. We're going to be going through some shop talks. So without further ado, let's have the business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So I was happy when this popped up here on April 7th because it's one of John's favorite companies and favorite toys. Ole, I think it's Ole or Ole. I'll say it wrong because I'm not Danish. Kirk Kristiansen. I think I got Kirk Kristiansen right. I'm not sure about the O-L-E. How would you pronounce that? Ole?
Ole, I think. Ole.
Ole would be Spanish, I'm thinking.
Ole. I have the wrong.
Anyway, Mr. Kristiansen's birthday is today. Kirk Kristiansen. And a Danish carpenter, and he's also the founder of the Lego Group, which we all know about, the Lego toys. So he was born again April 7th, 1891. He died at a young age at 66 years old, March 11th, 1958. And over the course of his life, they said he developed an interest in woodworking. And he had a woodworking shop in Denmark. And he made lots of household goods. But during the Depression and during some difficult times and during the wars in Europe, he had made some wooden toys as well to keep the business going. And he eventually transferred into making plastic bricks, and which I put him in a little note here, Candeliers Bob. So it was, he insisted on doing paper and wood, but realized that plastic might be the way to go with this molding kit. And that was actually the first manufacturer in Denmark to use plastic for developing toys. And of course, the Lego company was born. They said that he was one of 10 kids. He was born in Denmark. And as I said, he had a fascination with whittling wood. And he used to do lots of restoration work and developed a lot of home good products. And so he lived for a long time selling ironing boards and making brooms and things, kind of household items. And so there was a decline in business, and he kept having to release. He had 8 employees, and he kept having to release his employees. And he felt bad having to release them, but he just couldn't afford to keep them anymore because people couldn't afford to buy items. So he wanted to make kids happy, so he started building these wooden toys. And the one I laughed about most, they said he did things such as yo-yos and pull-along animals and trucks. And he was very famous for, and you'll probably remember this, the pull-along duck.
Oh, my God. That was his? The little duck.
Well, they said at least that was his idea, whether people knocked it off or not. But he really had success with this pull along, the duck that you would pull along behind you. Remember the legs would flap,
I do.
The wooden wheels. And he was known for the quality of his work. He insisted that everything be perfectly done, and he actually had a motto that the company still uses today, which is only the best is good enough. And even when his son tried to skimp on some of the toys that were being built with only 2 coats of varnish instead of 3, he made all the stores return the product and put the extra coat of varnish on because he felt that only the best was good enough. And so he kept to that philosophy, and that's still the philosophy of the company to this day. So interestingly, do you know what Lego means? Lego?
I remember the acronym had something to do with connectivity, or am I wrong?
I think you're wrong.
Okay.
So the factory where he was doing the wood and the wooden toys or whatever had a fire, and so they had to start again. And what they did talk about with him is his kind of persistence to persevere. There was a number of times the company had gone bankrupt. There were fires. There were just not money coming in, and he just kept trying to make a success. So he had when he came up with these bricks. It was called, it was a Danish word, legot, L-E-G, and then the next word is G-O-D-T. And they anglified it, of course, but the meaning was play well.
Okay, I get it. So they abbreviated it, but it came from L-E-G-O-D, legot.
Legot, which was a Danish word, which meant to play well, which they changed to the Lego company, the Lego group. And so, as I said, he ensured that his products were always great. He was widely recognizable from the pull-along wooden duck, and which has since had numerous variations. In 1947, they were the first toy manufacturer in Denmark to purchase a plastic injection molding machine, which was so expensive it actually cost more than twice the year's previous profits.
Wow.
But he did this, and they developed what they called in 1949 the automatic binding block, which we know today as the Lego pieces. And it was based off of an actual locking block that was invented by Hilary Fisher Page. And again, they had initially made it out of wood, made it into plastic, and found the right sort of plastic that would make it adhere and have the right amount of friction to it. And lo and behold, in January 1958, they got a patent for the Lego brick. And the rest is history. The son took over the company. His dad died, unfortunately. Ole died before he saw success of the Lego company and what they call the system of play. And but they really say that the success of Lego was really based upon their dad's perseverance and his opinion that, or his motto of only the best is good enough. But he died before he saw success of the Lego Group, and his sons have been running the company and family since.
And it's an amazing company. Aren't there corporate headquarters up in Connecticut here in the U.S., I think?
They were, yeah, up in Hartford area, up around there, yeah. And but it's still a Danish company.
Yeah, and it's still privately owned. Did you mention that? I think.
Yeah, it's owned still by the family, and it's they list where it's located. I can't speak Danish,
Dutch.
so for me to try
Danish.
to
Sorry.
But anyway, they're yeah. So it's it's still owned, and the family runs it, and they really just put everything into this Lego, the plastic building blocks, building toys. And but yeah, it's another one of those stories that just, people seem to, I don't want to say people fall into things, but in working with things, we heard that when we had, of course, Jay Sammet on, I think. He said a lot of companies start out thinking they're going to do one thing and you end up doing something else because you find out along the way that something else might have either a better shelf life or more resonance with the consumer. So this was an instance where he was selling household goods made out of wood and ends up making kids' toys and then ends up
which becomes an empire.
Plastic.
Yeah, an empire of and changing kids' lives, because we did a show once on Sirius where we talked about Lego, and we had callers from all over the country that said, I went into urban planning because of Lego. I went into architecture or civil engineering. So it's a little idea that has an impact that's so huge, right?
Yeah, I remember that show and people saying that it's what made me want to be an architect. Yeah. I loved Legos too. You were though one of those kids that would get the Lego set and try to build it exactly as maybe on the box.
Well, I thought that was the plan when you. You would get the set. You wanted to duplicate the box, and
I didn't have patience for that. I would do
But
my own
when
thing.
you and I were growing up, Lego was a little less specialized. You would get a big kit, and it would have a number of bricks, and you could build whatever you want. Now you buy these super specialized sets to look like a robot or to look like something from Star Wars. I sometimes I have a Lego Empire State Building upstate, and it's so special. I mean, it was designed to be you put it together. I think there's like 300 bricks or something, and it looks great. But those bricks wouldn't be in the kits that we had as kids. So
no, they're very small. Did you? I just threw some Legos away.
I did too. I know. I threw away a bunch that were just cracked and crusty, and they'd had dirt on them. I used to take them out to the sandbox and play with them. I mean, they were not. Someone told me later they could be washed, and I wasn't sure how to go about doing that. I think you put them in a mesh bag in the dishwasher or something like that. But
that's a good point.
I learned too late, but it's okay because the day I got rid of that, I got rid of a microscope and an erector set that was all kind of aging. You have those things as memories, right? You hold on to that stuff because it reminds you of play or whatever, but it's not like you're going to use it again, and it takes up space.
Were they in good shape?
No, they were played with. As my mom is fond of saying, and I think your mom told you once with all your toys, you played with it. Right. You got your use out of it, right?
Did you just toss it in the garbage, or? We
donated it. So someone somewhere is probably playing with some of that stuff or attempting to, where'd you get this? It's junk. It's broken. Good business birthday. Excellent business birthday. So at the top of the show, we talked about, I teased by saying employers are probably planning on having many of their employees back in the office as of Labor Day, which kind of falls in with what Dr. Fauci was saying about, the fall and the winter being more likely to be the zones that we would fall into more normalcy as vaccines pick up and as the event continues. So that triggered this story. Employers could be heading back to the office sooner than later. And it was interesting, the article, because it talked about how companies are planning to adapt to work from home versus being in the office, and how they were planning on offering incentives for employees to be vaccinated or to actually provide that vaccination service at their companies if they're large enough. I did take note that companies like Microsoft and Google, who had previously been kind of like, yeah, you can work from home, they're pretty much leading the stampede to get people back to the office, if I read that correctly, right?
I was wondering about that. It said 1 year into the epidemic or into the event, employers, particularly tech companies like Microsoft, Twitter, Spotify, Shopify, extended work from home policies, some indefinitely. So it almost sounds like that they were thinking that this was going to be the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're saying that they want everybody to come back, huh?
Well, after I read this article, I read an article about Microsoft and how they have looked at data from employee satisfaction surveys, and they've discovered that the only people that are super happy about working remotely are bosses, because they no longer run into their staff and their coworkers who can actually tell them something's wrong or something's not good. And they also noticed an interesting spike in instant messaging using the company's platform from 6 p.m. to midnight. So here you work all day and then you're doing more work. So people are working longer hours. They don't know when to quit. Work and life has bled together. And many claim that they don't ever want to go back to the office, but there's an equal amount of people who want to be back at the office. And I know the article mentioned Bloomberg in here, right? Bloomberg News.
Right.
And Bloomberg has basically said, once you're vaccinated and once you're, moving along on that time frame, we're expecting you to come back to the office at some point. What do you think about all this?
I've heard both from people, and I don't know how they're going to unwind this, because I've heard from friends that, and all mid-level to senior level workers, that love the fact that they can work from a remote area, similar to what you mentioned earlier in the show, where your niece can go visit your mom or visit her parents and still work, which she could not do before if she needed to be in the office every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that aspect of it, and a number of people that say, I think I'm more productive at home because I don't have all the distraction that I do at work. But I think distraction is different at home too. That's the other thing I think that people sometimes ignore. And then on the other hand, I hear a number of people, you and I just spoke with somebody recently who said he hates the fact that they're working from home because he doesn't have that accidental bump into somebody or that conversation beyond the Zoom call. A lot of things happen outside of meetings. A lot of things happen. You might be in line coming from the parking lot. You might be walking into the building. You might be going to another floor for something. And a lot of discussions that happen are things you overhear. The accidental thing you might overhear, or you might hear a discussion about, might either trigger something or might be helpful to what you're working on as well. And you don't get that off of just doing Zoom calls or Skype calls or something. So I've heard both things, but I do think my feeling is there's a number of people, particularly in accounting and billing areas, that say they don't want to go back. You can still send the stuff. We can still do the billing. I can do it on my computer.
Yep.
And I don't want to go back to the office. And some are claiming that they have either pre-existing conditions or they're using a medical issue of saying I've got a compromised
immune system
or whatever. So I don't know what you're going to do. Can you force? I guess you could. Can you force the employees to come back to the office?
In fact, that's part of the article, was the tug of war that human resources and CEOs are grappling with now, is cajoling, urging, whatever language you want to use. They're going to eventually have to draw a line and decide how that works. And then at one point in the article, I believe someone said towards the end that they fully believe that we will be closer to what we were in terms of people going back and forth to work and commuting a year out from now, once the vaccines are completely rolled out, et cetera. That's the point of view that I think I've heard most, and what I've seen most in the business trades, is that there's going to be this idea of collecting people for exactly what you said: serendipity, ideas, the exchanges, the energy, the teamwork. And the guy that said that, he said, workplace culture is notoriously hard to change. Even after something like the event and working from home, he goes, that was a dramatic, immediate shift that didn't happen slowly, and we'll probably bounce back to what we were beforehand. So it was an interesting article. And I think we've seen a lot of that popping up, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether people will be, you get up in the morning, you don't feel like going into the office. I'm going to work at home today.
Well, that's another, if you don't, and I believe, people I've spoken to that are planning on going back, they're looking at the 3-2-4-1 kind of thing. You're in 3, you're out 2, and they're looking at different space accommodations where they'll have the teams come in on certain days to work together, that kind of thing.
Right.
So we'll see. It's interesting, and it's evolving. We'll leave it at that. So our last shop talk is about manners, basically, and it's a twofold thing. So I had read an editorial by Representative Eric Swalwell, and in his editorial, the headline reads, "Republicans smear me on Fox News, then want to grab dinner, but Congress isn't the WWE." And he says, I'm just going to abridge this and say, many of my Republican colleagues also don't see the people they represent as constituents to serve. They see fans to entertain, thinking this will help them win re-election. But Congress shouldn't be like WWE wrestling. You can't smash a chair over someone's head in the ring, then hang out backstage like it was an act, and still expect to make any progress on behalf of the people who elected us. The preoccupation with putting on a show often devastates the relationships required for bipartisan cooperation. I've often wondered about this. We all know that politics is theater on some level, but I've often wondered about where that line gets drawn, and he clearly just says that. So he mentions a book next, which he was privileged to write the foreword for, and the book is called "Manners Will Take You Where Brains and Money Won't." Let me get that graphic up here and go shop talk. Okay. And it was written by a gentleman who is now since retired from NASA, and his name is Donald G. James. And he says in his foreword, "Don't mistake this for some milquetoast go along to get along philosophy. Being consistently genuine, polite, and principled is a learned skill and hard work. It requires you to step outside your comfort zone, to subvert your reflexive impulse to hit back, and to constantly think about how to stay on the higher ground. It is in many ways a spiritual undertaking and a journey that never ends. This lesson is lost on many in Congress." And then I called up the book review of this book called Manners. There it is. "Manners Will Take You Where Brains and Money Won't. Wisdom from Mama and 35 Years at NASA." And it sounds like an interesting book, and I think I agree with Representative Swalwell, right?
I think both sides are guilty. Do you?
Yes,
you?
I agree. Yeah, it's all posturing. But if you talk about manners, and if we look at integrity and people who are mannered in the workplace and respecting of others and listening carefully and thoughtfully replying and not reacting immediately, I think that's a lesson that goes well beyond politics, right?
Right. Yeah, because a couple of the takeaways from the book, there were two that I pulled out. One of them says, "Always be aware of how your behavior is and how you are showing up," he advised. And then he always says, "Always be interviewing. People are watching you and seeing how you treat other people." And this was funny. This came out because there was also a review, which we didn't include in the story, but John Boehner wrote a book. Did you see that? That has just come out recently.
Oh, yes, indeed. John Boehner. Yeah.
But essentially, he had said that many people criticized Obama and the Obama administration for just this very thing as well, of not working with Mitch McConnell, not working with the Republicans. And, John Boehner very directly said, "Well, would you want to work with somebody who thought you were a Muslim born in Kenya?" And, he threw it right out there and said, if this is the way they're treating you, if this is the way you're behaving toward this person, how am I going to get anything done? Mm-hmm. And Boehner said, his big frustration was with all these Tea Party people that had come in that were banging this drum about birth certificate and being a Muslim. And if he's a Muslim, who cares anyway, right? But the fact that they were saying he was lying about his background, he said, why would he want to work with anybody? He said, if people are treating you like that, and this goes back to the behavior and how you treat other people and manners, why would you work with them? And so I think both sides hold some sort of responsibility to compromise. And we always go back to the old Reagan and Tip O'Neill example of, if you get 80%, it's a win on both sides. You're not ever going to get 100% what you want. You are never 100% right. It's the art of compromise, and that's what democracy is, right? It's about
Boehner, and I'm glad you brought up the Boehner book, because he said something that I thought was super fascinating when he had that freshman wave of the Tea Party elected come in. He began telling them about incrementalism and compromise. This incremental movement. You don't always get everything you want. You get just like Tim said a second ago, 80-20, you get 80%. He said what he found utterly stupefying and hard to deal with was this freshman class, the Tea Party crowd. They wanted 110%, and they wanted blood on the floor. Win,
Right.
win, 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 win. It wasn't about compromise. It wasn't about helping people figure things out. It wasn't about governing. It was about something completely different. And that was I'm glad you brought it up, because it really does dovetail nicely into this piece that Eric Swalwell mentioned, and the book that he mentioned, This Manners, which came out early in February. And it just tells me that, you know, the kind of people we used to see like that acted like this, that respected each other. Tim used to have a great little anecdote. Was it Kennedy and Orrin Hatch? Was it? You did a number on me on the Senate floor. Let's go out for lunch. Remember that? What was? I'm thinking.
Right. No, it would be Ted Kennedy, and they said Ted Kennedy was famous for this. Ted Kennedy would often give what they would say red meat, liberal vitriol. You know, he would just throw it to the base. Essentially, Kennedy would get up and give these barn-burning, you know, not horrible, but barn-burning pro-liberal speeches, which would be against either John McCain, many times John McCain, or Orrin Hatch, who were, you know, conservative Republicans. And after he would get up there and just totally lambast them and tell them about how they were wrong and how they were taking away things from the common man and didn't understand America and so forth, they said he would walk over to Orrin Hatch and put his arm around. How'd I do, Orrin? You know, put his arm around him. Or at times they would come in and hear two freshmen arguing about something, and then he and McCain would just pick up. He said we didn't even know what the conversation was or what they were arguing over, but we would both pick up our mics and go after each other and then put it down. Boys, that's the way it's done. It'd be like, what did we? And he would say, we didn't even know half the time what we were fighting against, but it was, you know, throw your red meat out. The other one throws their red meat out. Yeah. Accuse one of this, accuse the other of that, and move on. But at the end of the day, they would go out and they were friends.
They respect each other. Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue, I think, and the takeaway on this is respect. And I think D.C., because of cost of living, people say this is a problem too. The kids don't go to school together anymore because a lot of times the families don't live in town. And when you've got to face somebody after you've just fought with them, with their wives, their kids at the Boy Scout meeting or Girl Scout meeting or something, there's a different way of behavior and respect. So it's those were a good end to Shop Talk. So, hey, thanks for joining us today. We want to thank you for joining us each week. Be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com and follow along with all of our media, which is housed there, including our Tuesday podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. You'll also find our sponsors there. Deep Discount is there. You can click on them and start shopping away. We'd like you to go through our site because we get credit. And be sure to pick up the movie that's the new release this week, Defending Your Life. That's one of John's favorites. We hope you all have a great week. Take care.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.